So hello everyone, welcome to this another video of Scale Up India. This video is part 3 of our JDBC series in which we are going to learn how to perform CRUD operations using statement. Now in the part 1 of this JDBC series, we introduced our scenario of Petistaan and then we learned that we will be doing some operations in our Petistaan, which is basically a pet owners community. Now in our part 1, we did the same thing but with the help of our inbuilt database, which we did with the help of our list, and it was just a dummy database and the whole scenario was explained there. Then in part 2, we learned that how we can create a connection between our Java application and database. So that was a very short video and there we just made a connection. Now in this part 3, we will be using those connections of our JDBC in our Petistaan scenario, and then we will be performing the CRUD operations using statement. Now before we deep dive into what is statement and how this is used, let's just revise that what are the various kinds of operations we will be doing in Petistaan in our database. So the very first operation is going to be that we need to add some owners and some pets to our Petistaan. So for this there will be some insertion of data, and these kinds of operations are known as create operations. Now here you may wish to just add one pet, one owner, or you may wish to add multiple pets and their owners, but they will come under the create operations. Now the next operation is the read operations, because here let's say that we have added all the pets and owners in our database. So at the end we need to fetch the list. We want to see that how many owners are there, which owner is there, from which city, and all the details. So those operations will come under the read kind of operations, and here there won't be any kind of change of state of your database. So database will remain as it is. Initially if there were, let's say, 10 rows, so after reading operation also they will remain 10 rows only without any kind of modification. Now after this, the third operation is, let's say an owner wants to change the name of their pet. So here this you may feel that it is going to be again an insert operations, because you are going to insert the name of the pet. But if we try to understand, the pet was already there in our database and we are just changing the name, so we are just modifying the name. So this operation will be known as update operations. Yeah. And then the fourth one comes is, let's say an owner or a pet wants to move out of the community, so hence we should be deleting their data, and these operations are known as delete operations. And when we combine all these four operations, we say that these are the CRUD operations. So here C stands for create, R stands for read, U stands for update, and D stands for delete. So whenever you will be performing or you will be working with any kind of database, at max you will be performing any one of these four operations only. You can just pause a video for a minute and then think of a kind of operations, and believe me, it can be categorized under one of these. Whether you say that I want to read data of one owner, I want to read data of multiple owners, it will be read. You say I want to update name or update ID or update something else, it will be an update operation. You say I want to delete one row or multiple rows, it will be delete. And if you say that I want to add the data, it will be create. So these are our CRUD operations. Now let's categorize these CRUD operations in one more criteria. So here we say that these operations can be categorized under two parts. So one is data manipulation operation, where we are going to change the state of your database. And the other one is data retrieval operations, where the change of the database is not going to be changed. So initially if there were 10 rows, now also there will be 10 rows. The data will also remain as it is and there won't be any kind of change. Now let's put those four operations under these two categories. So we can easily say that create will come under manipulation, because whenever we will be performing a create kind of operation, it will be adding new rows to your database. So it's a manipulation. Another one is update. Now here, although we are not going to add any kind of row, but we are going to change the data of any particular row or multiple rows. So this is again a manipulation. And the third one is delete, because here we are going to delete the data, delete the number of rows or maybe some kind of data. So this is again a manipulation. And the fourth one which was left is the read. So that will obviously come under the retrieval operation, because whenever we are reading from the database, we are not making any change to our database. It will remain as it is. No change in rows, no change in data, and everything will be there same. Now, after this, let's try to see that how we can perform these data manipulation operations using our JDBC. So in order to perform this data manipulation operation, we need to follow some steps, and these steps are again similar whatever we discussed in our previous video, where we learned that how to connect our Java application with the database. So I hope that you must have watched that video. If not, then you can just pause this one and first watch the previous one, because again that video is a prerequisite for this one, and not only that, but the demo, the part 1 also. So both part 1 and part 2 are the prerequisite for this one. Otherwise you won't get the whole scenario directly. So when we say data manipulation operation, the first operation which we obviously needs to do is that now we need to connect with the database. So first of all, we need to load our JDBC driver. And if you remember, in our last video we did it with the help of class.forName, and then we gave the driver name. And I informed you that this driver name is going to vary from database to database. For MySQL it is going to be something different, for Postgre it is going to be something different, for H2 it is something different. In our videos we will be using MySQL, so here we will be using a particular name of the database. Now just pause a video for a second and tell me in the comment section what was the name of the driver, if you just remember. Otherwise you will come to know in our next part, whenever we will be starting with the code of this thing. But just try to learn, or just try to remember that what you learned in the previous video, and you can provide me in the comment section. Now after loading the driver, the next part was to create a connection with the database. So here we are going to establish a connection with the database, and for this again, if you remember, we were taking help of the driver manager, and there we were providing the important 3 things. Again, you can pause, you can comment first, and then you can check. So those 3 important things were URL, username, and password. So whenever you wish to connect with any kind of database, you need to know where it exists, what is the username, what is the password, because obviously you should be having access. I mean, you can't say that I will be interacting with the database of NASA or ISRO or any other database. That is not allowed, because neither you will have the URL nor the username nor the password. So these are the important things. Now once this connection is established, the next part is that we need to create a SQL statement. Now this thing we didn't learn in our previous video, because there we just established a connection and we say that okay, connection established successfully, that's it. Now here we are going to see that how we can create a SQL statement. So this SQL statement, you can just, as of now, you can try to understand that it's a kind of interface in Java which is going to convert your string SQL to the actual SQL query, because in the database only queries are going to work, but in your Java, how can you create a query? With the help of this particular statement. So this is it. Now once we are going to create a SQL statement, then after this we need to invoke. So in our MySQL, if you remember, we used to click on a particular power button on the top, and whenever we used to click that button, it used to execute our statements. So here we are going to invoke the method execute update. So for any kind of manipulation operation, whether it's a create, update, or delete, irrespective of the name which we are using, create, update, or delete, the method will remain same only, that is execute update. Because whenever you are going to perform the operation, it is going to change the state of your database, and hence we say it is execute update. So now let's say that we have executed this statement. So obviously it is going to make some change in your database. It will be either adding some rows or deleting some rows, or it is going to change the data of some particular rows. So all this information we will be getting as an output for this execute update. So this method execute update is going to return you an integer, which actually denotes the number of rows which have been modified. And then it is up to us whether we wish to utilize that output or not. that is completely optional. But before these 4 main steps we need to perform, that is loading, then creating a connection, then creating a SQL statement, and then invoking the execute update method. So I hope this is clear. Now let's try to do the same with the help of our code. Now before we move on to our code, let's just try to remember that how our database used to look like. So this was our database where I was saying that our schema name is Petistaan underscore JDBC. We created it last time. And then the table name was owner underscore table. This also we created with the help of the create statement. And then we also added the data in this particular table. So I will just say select star from owner underscore table and will execute this. So you can see that this is the data of my database. So here we have ID, first name, last name, gender, city, state, mobile number, email ID, pet ID, pet name, pet date of birth, gender and type. So all this data already exists in our database. So as you can see here we are having almost 72 rows with us. So we will be adding data after this with the help of our code now. So let's move on to our IDE now. So here we comes to our IDE and let's start with our demo 2. And if you're thinking why we are not talking about demo 0 and 1. So demo 0 we have already discussed in detail, and there we have explained the whole scenario. And there in the repository IMPL we were not using the actual database. We were taking help of the list, just a dummy database. And this was completely covered in part 1, so you can watch it. And in this demo 1 we just learned that how to create a connection with the database. So all this thing we learned step by step, how we wrote which particular part, why finally, why catch, why try. We learned all these things in the part 2 of our JDBC series. And now we are with the demo 2, which comes under the part 3. Now here, before we are going to make any changes to our repository layer, let's just do one quick thing, that here we had a OwnerDTO class. So this is my OwnerDTO. Let's try to compare it with our table first. So for the table, what I will be doing is I'll go to this resources, and as I said I have this database.txt, which I just generally keep. My application is not going to use. I generally keep it for a reference purpose, and also when I will be uploading the same to the GitHub, you can download it and you can reuse the same. So let's compare this table with this particular OwnerDTO. So for this, I'll try to, let's say, keep it something like this. So there it goes. So let's compare them step by step. So here the class name is OwnerDTO. The table name is owner underscore table. Then we have a ID, which is an integer, and here I'm saying this is ID. It's an integer, it's not null. So as of now, if you know that there is something like a primary key, we are not using the concept of primary key here, just in order to make it simple. If you wish, you can make your ID also as a primary key, but here we are not making. Then we have something like first name. Now see here I'm writing it as per the camel case approach, something like this. But in the table, I'm using my snake case approach because that's the preferred one. So here we say it's a string, and here we say it's a varchar with the length of 255. It is up to you. 255 is generally the max length which we choose. And we are just saying that it cannot be null, which means we need to add the data. So for this, we are not keeping anything in our OwnerDTO as of now. Only in the database level we have said that it cannot be null. Then we have this particular last name, which is again a string, and then we have a gender. So gender, if you see here, it's an enum. So gender is an enum here, but here the gender is again a varchar. So although I know that for me gender is going to be either capital M or capital F, something like this. Let me just select it. So this is going to be M or F, but in database I'm still taking it as 255. If I wish, I can just take it as length of 1 only, and that will be more than enough for me. Then we will go for the city, state, mobile number, email ID. All of them are this particular your string and varchar here. For mobile number and email ID, I have done something different also, that I'm saying that every user or every owner is going to have a unique mobile number and a unique email ID, which means two owners can't have the same mobile number and email ID. So I'm just mentioning here, nothing in our DTO as of now. Then the pet ID comes, which is again an integer here, then the pet name, and then comes the date of birth. So here the date of birth, I'm making usage of local date, because if you have watched a video of datetime API, there I say that local date was introduced in Java 8, and that's a preferred one which we generally use. But how to point this in a database? So there we will just say date. So only this date is going to be mentioned there. Then we will say about this particular pet gender. So this pet gender is there. Then we say this particular pet type, and this pet type is there. Again, these are varchar, and here these are the enums here. So it will be able to convert from this particular enum to that particular thing. But obviously we will see that how that particular conversion is going to happen. But this is currently the relation between your DTO, which you are going to save to your database of that particular table, which is your owner underscore table. So now let's close these three classes and move towards our other layers. So for this particular demo, I'm not going to explain you all the classes, because these classes are going to remain same as it is of our demo 0. The only change which is going to happen is in the repository layer. Rest everything will remain same. In the service layer there is no change. The job of service layer is still to call your repository layer only. And your repository is again going to have the same method. So there is a method to save owner. There is a method to find owner. There is a method to update pet details, where we are just changing the name of pet. Then we have delete owner, and the last one is find all owners. And this is my repository IMP. So something which you can see here. So again, I'm utilizing some of the things from my previous video. So in demo 1, we have already explained that we should keep these common things here, so that if I wish to change the schema or anything here, I don't need to change it again and again in all the methods. I can change in one particular place only. And in this save owner, here also we have this much amount of code with us, where it is very simple. So what I'm doing is I'm just loading the driver. So this driver will be loaded. Now you know that whenever we are going to load the driver, it can throw you some kind of exception. So those exception we are handling here in the catch block. And then we are creating a connection with the database. And in order to create a connection, we need to pass the URL, username and password for this particular thing. Now since this is a connection, so we should always close the connection because it's a resource. And for closing, we are making usage of the finally block. Now within the final block, you may say that why again this try and catch? Why not only connection.close? Because if you remember, we discussed this last time, that what if some exception occurs in this particular line itself. So if exception will occur in line number 28, then connection is not even created. So if something is not created, how can we close it? So hence we need to check first whether it is non-null or not. If it is non-null, then only we will close it. And at the time of closing also, some again exception can occur, which we are mentioning here. Now what we are doing as of now is that whenever any kind of exception will occur, we are just printing here. So whenever you are developing your code, you wish to see that what is the complete stack trace. So hence we are doing this particular thing. But whenever you are about to release it to the user, whenever the development is complete, at that time we should not have this print stack trace, and instead we wish to just throw the exception. So here I am throwing the exception also under this. So I'm just throwing the message to the another layer. And here it is not again anything like hard and fast rule. So some of you may say that no, this should not be the way, I wish to do it in some other way. So yeah, you can do in that way also. Here just a very basic and general thing I'm just keeping here, that we are throwing the exception also to the above layer, so that it should not happen that we are just hiding the exception or we are just swallowing the exception, and we are showing the complete stack trace also, so that if anything happens during the development, I can identify the bug easily for this particular part. So as I mentioned, we are going to work for this particular save owner, and just tell me in the comment section out of those 4 operations, that is create, read, update and delete, save comes under which particular operation? And the correct answer is that this one comes under the create, because here we are going to create a new row, or we are going to add a new row to our database. So here we have already loaded the driver. So part 1 was done. Part 2 was that we need to create a connection. So that is also done. And the part 3 was to create a SQL statement. So how we are going to do so? So for this, let's take help of connection, because currently we have just this connection variable only. So I'll go there and say open declaration. So this is the connection interface. Now here I'll see if there is a way to create a statement. And for me, the luck is that the very first method is create statement. So I will be utilizing this method create statement. So what I'll do is I'll just go back here, and after this, I'll say connection dot create and then statement. So connection dot create statement, this we will be doing. Now what this create statement is going to do, let's try to understand. So here it says it is going to create a statement object for sending SQL statement to the database. So what it is actually going to do is, here obviously we need to provide an SQL. As of now I am not providing that, also we will see in some time that how we are going to provide the SQL, but it will convert it to the actual SQL query and send it to the database. The SQL statements without parameters are normally executed using the statement object. And about this prepared statement we will learn in our next video. But as of now, the short and simple answer is that this create statement is used to convert your string SQL to the actual SQL query. So this is the thing. Now here, let's see what kind of output it is going to return. So it is going to return us a statement. So let's click on this. And this statement you can see is again an interface, which is as per the part of your JDBC API. And what is this? The object used for executing a static SQL statement and returning the results it produces. So obviously it is going to return some result also. So that, and it is for executing the static SQL statement, something which is not going to change again and again. In a one method, in one particular call, it is going to remain as it is. So that one. So this is the thing. And obviously since it is going to return us a statement, so let's save this particular statement here. So we will say statement, something like this. And for this statement, let's say Control Shift O. So it is coming from java.sql. So don't go for this com.mysql. Yeah, we need to go for this SQL one, the major one, which we just saw here. So this is the thing. Now this statement is again a kind of a resource, and if this statement is a resource, we should close it. So let's try to close this. And what do you think, statement should be closed before connection or after connection? Just try to think that statement we have created within the connection. So if we are going to close the connection itself first, how we can close the statement? Yeah, this is like that there are, let's assume, two boxes. One was a bigger box, you opened it, then you found a small box, and then you are again opening this. So which box you are going to close first? Obviously the inner one. So we need to close the inner one first. So here let's say statement dot close, something like this. But here it says that statement is not found because we created the variable within this particular try block. So that is the scope. So we need to create it outside here. So let me say Control X, let me say here Control V, and let me say here null. So initially this is null, and here I will say this is my particular statement. So yeah, now we will close. Now for this also it can throw you some kind of exception. So let's add that particular thing, add a try and catch block here. So we are adding a try catch block for this thing also, something like this. It's an SQL exception, and here let's rename it to something with this as exception only, so that it looks nice. So Now it will be something like this, exception, and here also I forgot the E. So this is your exception. Now this close also, I mean, what if that error occurs in this particular place only within the connection? So this statement is not even started. So if something is not even started, how can you close? So again, for this also, let's try to have this logic of non-null first, and here we will say that this is going to be your statement, something like this. Yeah. And what I'll just quickly do is I will just select it and say Control Shift F. So only this part will get formatted, not the whole class. So this we have done something here, that if it is not null, then only it will come to this particular logic. Now after this is looking big, but what we can do is we can try to combine this logic, because we know that both of them are going to throw the same exception. So what we can do is we can just combine it like this, that we will be making only one of them, that within a final block there will be a try block, and within that we are going to have this particular logic with us, that first of all we'll try to close the statement. If it is not null, then we will try to close the connection if it is not null. Now after this, let's move ahead. What is the next part? So we have created the connection. Now the next job was to invoke the method execute update. Now how can we invoke that particular method, and where does it exist? Does it exist in connection? Obviously not, because we need to invoke that method on the statement. So let's identify whether the method exists here. So we will say here execute and then update, something like this. So let's see. Yeah, this method is there, execute update. So this particular method is there for us, and what we are going to do is we'll just go there after this particular thing, and we will say statement dot execute, and then we will say update. So this execute update we will be seeing here, and here we don't need to give the database driver, but we need to give the SQL query. But where is the SQL query? So let's create it first. So what I wish to do is I'll create it here. Let's create it here. It's your choice wherever you wish to create. I mean, if you wish, you can directly give the query here, or if you can create the query on the top also. So initially, as of now, let's call it as null. Yeah, and let's pass it on here. So this is our SQL. So this is the way. Okay, so you should not say that, okay, you said it is going to create a statement, then you are providing it here. So when all this particular code is going to be executed, it will convert this string to the actual SQL query, and then this execute update method is going to actually work on the database, and it will return you the number of rows which have been modified. This is going to work for the case of insert, update, as well as delete. Yeah, something like this. So this is going to be the output, but as of now we are just returning the void output, so we don't want to utilize the return thing, and hence I'm not saving it. So now this is how the code is going to look like for me, the saveOwner method. So I have just added this particular part, I have added this particular part, and yeah, that's how this one will look like. So this what it says in a finally close, use try with or close this. Okay, this connection is not closed, so I guess here we have made a mistake. Now the mistake is that we thought that by keeping both of them here, we will be able to make our code shorter. But here the problem is that if this statement will not be able to close, our connection also will not get closed. So that is the issue here. So hence again the only option is we need to divide this into two different parts. So whenever you are coding, so feel free to try all these things, and now let's see whether this works or not. So Control Shift F, and now let's say save, something like this. So now that error are gone, or that was not an error, that was just a kind of a suggestion provided by Sonarlin to me. And now you can see that even if your statement will have some kind of issue, that issue will be controlled here, and then your connection can still be closed. So this is how it is going to work. Yeah, obviously we are not throwing anything from here because we wish to close the connection. Later on we will see some better ways also. As of now, if you have learnt about try with resources, you may say that why you are not using try with resources, because that's a part of some separate video, not for this one. As of now, only these are the things we will be covering. So this is how our saveOwner looks like. Now let's see from the service how it was called. So from the service, it was called like this. So someone called the saveOwner, they provided the OwnerDTO, and then first of all they checked whether this ID exists in the database or not. And if the owner exists, we used to throw the exception duplicate owner. If the owner doesn't exist, we are going to save the owner. And that's how we will be getting this particular saveOwner OwnerDTO. Yeah. Now, the only thing left in this particular method currently is the SQL statement. So let's try to see how this SQL statement is going to look like, for which I will again go to my MySQL workbench. So this is a MySQL workbench, and this is how your insert statement is going to look like. So we will say insert into and then name of the table. Then we will provide all the variables or all the what we say as column names here, because whenever you are using Java and this, so there is a little bit confusion, so please pardon me for that. So all the column names we will be using. Now I'm deliberately providing, because if I won't provide then also it may work, but then I won't remember that what was the order. So hence I'm providing all the variables here, and then these are the values, and then this is, let's say, the data which we need to add. So already we have data till 72 and we wish to add this particular data as 73. So we need to provide this particular query. So let me just select it and provide it there. So there we go, something like this, and here let me say this one. So it looks little big, something like this, insert into owner and something like this. But there is one issue with this particular thing. The issue is that here we have hard coded everything, and we don't need to use the hard coded one. We need to use the data from this OwnerDTO. So for this, what we will be doing is that here we need to break our query. Like there can be different ways also. You can format your SQL and do all, but I will wish to go with the easiest one, because this is not something which we will be using later on. This is just a part which is there in JDBC. Yeah. So I'll close this query here, and then I will say a plus symbol, and there instead of hard coding it as 73, I will say owner dot get ID. So this is the way we will be getting, and then again the query is going to start string, so we'll again say plus and then something like this. So this way owner ID. Same way we need to replace the scale up, India and all the names, and if I will just show you and do all of it, it will take more time. So let me pause the video and take the things quickly here. So here I'm saying insert into owner table, then I'm just breaking the line so that it becomes a little bit more readable to us. So I will say plus symbol, I'll break the line, then this particular thing and this. So till values it is just the top hard coded part only, and then we are providing all this owner ID, and after everything we need to provide comma, so that comma we are providing. Then we will say the first name. Now this owner ID is an integer, so directly if you will write it is fine, but this first name is a string. So strings you need to write in this single inverted commas, something like this. So you need to have your single inverted commas also for all the strings. Then owner last name, then same for the gender. Now gender, if you remember, was our enum, but here we need to give a string, so we will just say toString, or you can even say get value, both are fine. Then we will say city, state, mobile number, then email ID, then pet ID, pet name, date of birth, then again the gender, and all these things we are saying, and at the end we are going to close this particular thing here. So this is how it is going to look like. And why we are doing something like this? Because this pet date of birth is our local date, but SQL doesn't understand your local date directly when you are taking help of your JDBC. Then SQL doesn't understand your local date, so we need to convert it to the SQL date. So for which we are taking help of this date. Now this date, if you remember in a video of datetime API, we said date comes from java.util, but this is in java.sql. So here we are importing the date from the java.sql because we need to convert it to the SQL date here. So this is how we have converted it, and now this is the way it looks like. So this is your SQL string, and when we will say create statement and execute update, it will convert it to the actual SQL query. Yep. So this is how your saveOwner method is going to look like, and this method will be invoked from here. So here you know that for this at least we need to create this findOwner method also, which we have not created till now. So first of all, let's go to a video and see that how this for findOwner, what all steps we need to cover, and then we will come back here. We will implement the logic for findOwner also. So the findOwner method comes under the retrieval operation, because here we are going to read some data from the database. So let's see how the operations or how the steps of retrieval are going to look different from your normal manipulation operations. So here again, obviously you need to load the JDBC driver first, same as the previous one. Then you need to establish a connection, same as the previous one. Then you need to create a SQL statement, same as the previous one, just the same way we did it till now. But here you are not going to say execute update, because you are not updating the database. Instead you are reading from the database, or the other term is we are querying from the database. So here we will say execute query. So it is going to read the output from your database on saying execute query. Rest first three operations are same here. And whenever you will say execute query, so it is going to return you a kind of a result set. As of now, just for the layman language, let's say that what is this result set? This result set is nothing but the table only, which is it is going to return you as the output. And if you still didn't understand how this result set is going to look like, let me show you in the MySQL workbench. So here we are back to our MySQL workbench, and let's say this was my read query, and obviously this is a read query which is going to read all the data. So when I will say something like this and I will say execute, which is execute query, you can relate it with that one. So it is going to return me some kind of this thing, and here they call it as result grid, and we are calling it as result set. So this is basically your result set, the kind of the output. Now you may say that this is the whole table, but if you will just say that I wish to execute something like this, where ID is let's say 72, so it can return you just one row also. So this simply depends what kind of your select query is going to be. And if let's say that this ID doesn't exist, you give something like 73, which is not there in our database as of now, so this may be empty also. So result set may have 0 rows, may have 1 row, may have multiple rows. And if you say that I wish to just get the ID comma city, so instead of all, you say I just wish to get something like this, where ID is 72, and you execute. So you can just get two things only. So here we are getting Cargill with us. Or if you just say we will just execute this one till owner table without any where condition, so you can again get multiple rows with only ID and city. But whatever the output you will be getting, this output view, this we call as result set there in our Java. Let's go back to our PPT. So now we know what's a result set, and now we need to do the analysis of it. Again, this is optional, but obviously when you are reading, so you will be doing something, so we will be seeing that. So let's see how this result set is going to look like. So let's assume that I said something like select ID comma city from the table, and I got something like this. So just for the showing of purpose, I'm showing you 3 rows only here, and let's assume our table was having only 3 rows. So for this I may have said something like execute query, I must have passed an SQL there, and let's assume I must have got something like result set. As of now we don't know how it is going to look like in the reality, that we will see with the help of code. Yeah. Now my job is that I need to get data out of this result set. I can't use it as it is, because let's say my goal is only to print the name of city. So how will I get the name of city? So for getting or for iterating over this, we will be taking help of the while loop. So we will say while, and then we will say result set dot next. So here what happens is that first of all, when you say execute query, so when you execute this particular statement, assume that it is going to have this particular result set as well as a pointer like this. It will create a pointer like this to you, which will initially point on the header. Now when you will say while result set dot next, so this next method will check whether it is having some data after this or not, and it will return you a boolean value, true or false. So it will have the data, it will say true. If it is not going to have a new next row, it will say you false. So when we will execute this next, it will say you true here, and it will take your cursor to that particular row, and at a time it will just read one row only. Now we need to get this Chandigarh or the city name out of this. So we will just say sysout, or whatever the operation you want to perform. You may want to set some variable, or you may want to do something else, but we will just say sysout, and we will say result set dot get string. So since this Chandigarh is a type of string, so we will say get string and then the name of column. So either you can pass on the name of column here, or you can provide the number on which this column exists. So currently in my output there are two columns, so I can say 2 here, and the moment I will say 2 here, it will start pointing to column number 2. This is a place where index are not going to start from 0. So this is something which you can say. But instead of remembering the column numbers, it is better to have the column names, because that is something easy to remember. And since it is a string, so we said string. We will see in that code that what will happen for this ID, what will happen for the date, for them what is the getter method. As of now, just assume that this get string is there, and this got executed for the first time. So it will print as Chandigarh here. Then what will happen? Then again the control will go to the while loop. This line will get again executed. Cursor move ahead, it will say true. Then again it will go inside, it will come out as Mumbai. Then again this will get executed, it will move to Chennai, it will say you true, and then again it will go inside the block and it will give you Chennai. Now what will happen? It will get executed again, and this time since there is no row, so it will move out of your result set and it will say you false, but it will still move out. Yeah, so this is how it is going to happen. Now since it is saying you false, so obviously it will not get this particular city for you, because it will come out of the loop. So it will just say you finished. So whatever you have mentioned, so here I'm just writing finish so that I can show you that it will come out and something, but whatever, it will just show you. So this is the way that you are going to work with your result set, and the same thing we will be doing in our code. So here it was a representation, so I was just working with a one column, but in the code you can work with multiple columns, you can do whatever you wish, and all those things we will see in our code only. So I hope you have got this result set. If not, you can just go back and you can check out again that what I explained for the result set. But now let's move on to our IDE again. So here we are again to our IDE, and next we have the findOwner method. So here we go. So this is a findOwner method. Again you see it method looks same almost like the previous one. We have this connection, we have this, and you know these things needs to be there, so they will remain same. But again the next part, after loading the driver and having the connection, the next thing is we need to have the statement. So now let's try to be a little lazy and copy the things from the previous one. So we know that we need something like statement, so we will select this and we will just paste it out here, and then we need again this particular thing. So why I'm deliberately doing this is so that I can show you that how common the things are, and this finally block will also remain same, nothing change. So this is how my final block is going to look like. Yeah, now the next thing was that here I was saying something like execute update, but this time I won't wish to update anything, I just wish to query. So I will say here statement dot execute, and then I will say execute query, and there I will not provide the database driver, I will just say here SQL. And where is this SQL? So we just followed a rule that we will write the SQL statement always on the top. So this is how my SQL statement is going to look like, the null as of now, let's say. So this is the thing, your null. Now after this null, or let's try to put the data here. So for this, what we will see, let's go to our workbench and see how this select statement is going to look like here. But here we need to find it with the help of owner ID. So here we are. So this is how it looks like. We want to get all the columns, so we will just say star here. So select star from owner table where ID is something like this. So let's copy this and let's go to our IDE. So we are back here and let's put the things within this. But we don't need this ID here as hard coded. We want it to be like owner ID. But if I will just say this, it will behave as a string. So what I'll do is I'll just break it in parts. So I'll say this, then I'll say this, and yeah, as of now that's it only. We don't need any more like this. So we will just say owner ID, and this one looks shorter also. Yeah? Nothing much to be done. So this one looks simple and shorter. So everything is ready. Execute query. Now what? Now the thing is we need to analyze, because we need to return a OwnerDTO here. So how we will be doing this? So it says it is going to return a result set for us. So let's see. So we will just say result set, and let's say result set, which looks something like this. And for this, let's say Control Shift O. So this is how your result set is going to look like. And then you know that we need to have a while loop. So we will say while, and then we will say this is my result set, and here the next thing is I will just say next, which will return me a boolean. You can read out the description, and this will always move in the forward direction by default here. Yeah, there are different ways of moving in the backward direction, doing skipping and other things, but as of now in this video series we are not going to cover that. Here we are just going to cover the basic and important things, because at the end you are not going to use only JDBC. It is just a part of your journey. So this is how the things are going to look like. Now after this we can see here result set dot, let's say we wish to get the things. So what do we wish? So let's get the city itself, get string, and we can see here city. Just type in the name whatever you wish. So this is how you can get a city. But this is how things are not going to work. We need to return this OwnerDTO, and this OwnerDTO, the owner variable got created here. So what we will do is here we will say owner dot set city, something like this, and within this whatever the output it is going to return me, I will be just setting it here. So I will just set it here, and at the end we are going to return the owner. So this owner will be returned to us. Yeah? And as of now, that since owner ID is unique, so we will get a single owner only. So this is my assumption, yeah? That we will be having everything single here. So what it says it's a null pointer. Okay, we need to initialize it also. So let's do that thing here only within this particular one. Instead of the top, that owner equals to new of OwnerDTO. If you wish you can do on top also, but I just wish to do it here, that here I will be initializing it as OwnerDTO. So this is the owner city, but that's how the things are not going to look like, because if you see your OwnerDTO is having so many variables, which is like there are these many variables available with us, almost 12. If I say 25 minus 13, so almost 12 are there, 11 to 12 variables are there. And if we will start putting all of them one by one here, so this will have been around 12 more lines, and then this method will look too big. I mean, it is already too big. It started on line number 65, it's ending on line number 100. It's already too big. So instead of doing everything here, what we will do is, what I have done, that I have created a method or a class here as mapperUtil. So this is my class, and what this class does, it's take it takes a result set and it converts to the OwnerDTO. And how it does the same thing. It creates the OwnerDTO object and returns the owner, but taking the result set. So whatever the logic you were thinking to write here, like this particular one, so instead of writing this statement here, we can write this statement somewhere here, and similarly all the variables also we can write here. As of now it is giving the error, that we will check later, but this is the way it can do the things. Yeah, now the point is that we need to invoke this method from there. So let's see. So here what I'll do is that I will just say here mapper util something like this, and then I will say convert this, and I will just provide the result set. So this is the one, and whatever the OwnerDTO is going to return, I will just assign it here. So this method at least became smaller. Yeah, now all the logic I need to tackle here. So now all the variables I need to set here, but the problem is that it is still throwing some error. What is it? It says there is an SQL exception, because what if that here you say city something like this? Now what? This doesn't exist. So some exception is going to come, or something, some issues can occur here if the data goes wrong. So for such kinds of scenarios we need to throw the exception. So here we will just say that this also can throw the SQL exception for you. Yeah, and now the only job left is to set all the variables, but again it will take time. So let me just copy paste it from somewhere. So I have copy pasted the whole thing, and as you can see I'm just setting all the variables. So I know ID was an integer, so I'm saying get int. First name, last name, they were string, so I'm saying get string. Now this gender was string in the database, so I'm just saying get string, and then I need to convert it to the gender enum. So I will say gender dot value of, let me just import this by saying Ctrl Shift O. So this will get imported. Then city, state, mobile number, email ID, all are string. Pet ID is int, so I'll just say get int. Pet name is a string, so I'll say get string. Then same for gender and pet type. Now this date of birth. So this date of birth was the date there, so I will just say get date. Now this will again give me date, which is from java.sql, and I need to convert it to the local date. So I will just say here to local date. So these are the ways that you can convert the data from your result set to the OwnerDTO, and it's better to do such kind of operations separately so that your main repository method doesn't looks bigger. Yeah, so this is the way. And also now you feel that why it is better that we are not using those numbers, column numbers as 1 2 3 4, because then it would have not become that much readable. Yeah, so now let's go back here. So this is how we have created our findOwner also. Yeah, so this is the one. So both the things are ready for us, and before we work for the other things, let's try to execute the code and see whether the code is going to work or not. So we'll go here, we'll say demo, and let's execute the demo class. So where it is, yeah, there it goes. So the easiest one is to fetch owner details. So as of now we have just worked for 1 and 2, not for others. So we'll just say 2 here, and owner ID, let's say just something random, or let's say 25. Yeah, I'm not sure what is going to come. So for 25 it says the name is Daniel Reed, is a male, he's from Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. This is the mobile number, this is the email ID, the pet name is Luna, and the pet is a cat here. So this is how your data is going to look like for ID number 25 Daniel. Let's verify this. So for ID number 25, let's check out quickly. So here we will say ID number 25, and if I execute, so we get this Daniel Reed, Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, and he's from this, and then the pet name is Luna, which is a cat. So now when we know that the data is correct, let's move ahead. So it says press Y to continue. So we can add a new data here itself. So let's say add new. So it will ask us the ID of the owner. So here, as you know that I have already applied this logic. So I'm not saying anywhere that my ID is unique or it's a primary key, but I'm saying that if this ID already exists, then throw the error. So if I will use any IDs from 1 to 72, it will give me an error. So let's go for a better ID. So let's say 73 here. The first name, let's say scale up. Last name, let's say India. And then let's say gender is male. Then the city is, let's say, YouTube. Then state it, let's say YouTube is owned by Google. So mobile number, let's say something like this, 10 digits. It's not mandatory as such, but we are just keeping, and I'm assuming that this mobile number doesn't exist. Otherwise, again, it will throw me the error. Yeah. The email ID, let's say support at the rate scaleupindia.com, something like this. The ID of pet also, let's say 73, although there is no issue. Yeah. The name of the pet, what pet name we wish to go for. Let's try to go for something very different, which is, let's say, Pikachu here. So how many of you know about Pikachu? Then let's say some date of birth. So let's say 12, then let's say 12, and then let's say 2022. Okay, I was thought of 2020, but it got printed. Now that's a male and it's a cat, although it's a Pokemon. And yeah, it says owner got saved successfully, but what is the guarantee? We'll just say Y again. We'll just say 2 and we'll say here 73. You can see the data is there, scale up India, and all the data got saved here as it is. Let's verify in our workbench also. So here this time we'll give 73. Last time you know that it was giving me empty, but this time the data exists, something like this. Yeah. So this is how the things are going to work fine. Now let's stop this and work with our next of the things. So we have already done the create operation and read operation. Let's check out the next operation. The next operation is update the pet details. So for this we will be just getting the owner ID, from which we will see, and then we will be getting the pet name. Now there it goes, and this is the query. So what I'll do is, first of all, I will just provide my query here for the first time. Let's do it in this way. So initially this is null, and for the query let's take help of our workbench. So whenever we wish to say, we need to have it like this, update. So this is how my update query should look like. Update pet details within double inverted commas. It should look like this, update, then the name of table, then whatever the column you wish to change. So I just wish to change only the pet name, and that is Raichu. So here I need to break it here, so plus, and then I will just say plus here and something like this. So this is the way, and in between I will say here pet name. So this is how it is going to work. Same for the ID also, I'll break. So I will just say here this one, and then I'll say plus, and then I'll just say here owner ID, something like this. Yeah. So these are the things. Now for the update, what steps we need to follow? Just try to remember, update was a part of data manipulation. So steps should be same as your create one. So let's copy the things. Now believe me, we can copy all these things as it is. Let's try to see, can we copy? The answer is yes, connection till here. So I'll copy this from connection till end, and I'll quickly paste it here, something like this. So this is the one, and again I don't need to return anything, so that's also works fine for me. And this is SQL, so I'll just save here, so it works fine. Update pet details, so this also exists. Now let's go for the next one too. So update was so easy, nothing much needs to be done. So now let's go for the delete. So delete comes under again the manipulation. So this time, since I have already copied, so let me paste it first, and then I'll provide the SQL here. So I will say string, and then I will say SQL, something like this, SQL equals to, and then this, and then we need to have the double inverted commas. Now let's provide the delete. So that again appears here, delete. So this is the way to delete. So let's put up it here, and again we need to break for this thing. So here we will say plus, and then we just need to give the owner ID. Yeah, so that's how it is going to look like. Your delete is also simple, nothing much needs to be done. So that's why I said you just need to learn a few things and other things will just become repeated. Now tomorrow, because why the things are repeated, because if you see, this is just a query which is working, other things are same, execute update. So instead of creating multiple methods, I would have just created a single method, and there I would have just changed the query. That also would have worked, but that is not a good way to explain and do the things. So this is the way we have done. And anything left? So yeah, the last one is to find all the owners. And for this find all the owners, this time we need to return a list, and this find all owners is the read operation. So let's copy the data from the read here. So what we will do is we'll copy all these things. So as of now, let's quickly copy everything, and then we will decide what will happen or how much things we can reuse here. And I won't remove this particular line, I won't remove the last line, and we'll just go there. Now we don't need to return the owner, we are returning the owner list, that's fine. And here we don't need, I guess, this one also, directly we can add the owner there, so that is also fine. Or we can keep here also, that's not an issue, it's fine, nothing. So this is the owner, and what we just need to do, we need to return a list this time. So this is the owner list. So you will get the owner and you will just say add, and yeah, that's it you needs to do. So you get the owner, you put the details. So for the first owner, details will be added, next, the next, the next, and something like this. And here it says find all the owners, so there is nothing like owner ID, so this part got removed. And then there is no where condition, so this part got removed, and your output will look something like this. Now since in both of them you are using all the columns and everything, so same this method can be reused here. So this is the way it is going to work fine. For the previous one, this method got executed once, here it will get executed for the number of owners. The rest, as you can see, everything is same as it is. If you wish, you can reuse this OwnerDTO here itself, or if you wish, you can directly put this statement within the add, that is also fine, but it's your choice however we wish to do. Let's as of now stick for this one only. So yeah, now we feel all our methods are ready and our service class was already ready. So saveOwner, findOwner was simple, we will just invoke the method findOwner. If it is not null, then we will return. If it is null, we will say owner not found. For the updatePetDetails, we will first find the owner. If it is null, we will say owner not found, otherwise we'll invoke the method. For delete also, we'll get the owner ID, we'll find the owner first. If it is null, we'll say owner not found, else we will delete. And for find all owners, we will just find all of them by directly invoking the method. So now let's execute the demo. So two methods we have already executed, so I won't be executing them again, we'll just work for the next. But let's just execute this second, and for the ID number 73, and so that I can show you what is the current name. So the current name is Pikachu here. So let's say Y, and let's say update pet details. So ID is 73, the name of the pet. So the next way, or what I say, the next transitioned form of Pikachu was Raichu. So let's call here as Raichu. And yeah, it says pet details of owner have been updated successfully. So if I will say Y, and I will say here, let's say again 2, just in order to verify, and say 73. So it says that everything looks same, but the name has been updated to Raichu. So the update operation also works fine. So out of my 5 operations, that is first create, then read, then update, all 3 are going to work fine. The next one was delete. So let's do that. So we'll say Y, and this time we'll say 4, and let's say the ID is 73. So yeah, it says it got deleted successfully. Now what's the proof? So we'll say Y, we'll say fetch the details for ID number 73, and it says can't find owner with owner ID. Why this happened? Because this time when you say find, it went here, but it was not able to return anything to you. Why? Because when it went there in this particular one, this result set was empty. So for the very first time this got executed, it said false, it came out, and owner remained null only at that point of time. Now since your owner was null, it threw this particular exception, that is owner not found. So here in this owner not found we have mentioned, and then the owner ID we have mentioned. So this is the way. And since as per the rules of our code, whenever any exception will occur, the code is going to stop. So it got stopped. So let execute again, because still this fifth operation is left. So we'll just say 5 here and say execute. So 72 rows should appear. Yeah. So yeah, as you can see 72 are there, and we are counting also. So there are 72 owners, and this is their complete data, how it is going to look like. So this is the way your code should be looking, something like this. And now I can just close it from here. So this is the way you can see that in this particular one we have implemented all the repository methods. All these 5 methods were implemented with the help of statement, and we are performing the CRUD operations using the statement here. Yeah, all our queries were static here, and the things were easy. In the next video we are going to learn something about prepared statement, because you also may have heard about prepared statement somewhere. That we are going to discuss in the next video, and we will also see what are the advantages prepared statement is going to provide to us. Yeah, but till then you need to download the code in your machine. Also you need to execute, you need to watch all these 3 videos which we have done till now, so that you can get a complete idea for the scenario.